Shane, so stoked to have you back here, man. Last time you were on, I was just saying to you before we hit record, I just really, really enjoyed that conversation that we had last time. I think this is the second time, maybe third time. I can't remember, but I remember the last conversation we had, and I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. For those who may have missed that first conversation or aren't familiar with what you got going, tell us who you are and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so I'm Shane Winnings, about to be 35, married, 2 boys, almost 4 and almost 2 years old. I run a men's ministry called Promise Keepers, and so we're a national men's ministry. We do all kinds of stuff from men's conferences to, we've got social stuff. We've got a Zoom that we do every week for the guys. I'm doing a college tour in the fall. We did a little bit last semester, but this fall we're going to do a nationwide college tour, just like a prove me wrong style. Having these conversations with the next generation. I'm saying America needs godly men, like prove me wrong. And we're having some really good conversations already, so I can't wait for that to kick off. But other than that, I mean, a former Army officer and former police officer, so I've kind of had a wild ride.
Yeah, dude. And we talked about that last time, kind of your journey of getting into Promise Keepers, which is super cool. That was a great story.
Thanks, man.
That's interesting. The college tour thing. I was actually going to pick your brain on this even before you just said that, but I'm very rarely on my phone. I have no social media. I haven't been on the news, like seen the news in 6 months. I have no clue what's going on. Somebody told me the economy was bad the other day. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So groceries are so expensive,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. But I did see somebody post, or somebody shared something with me about this guy, Wes Huff.
Yeah.
And I guess this guy's kind of going around, and he's been on real popular podcasts. But what I found interesting. Somebody just sent me a clip, and I was showing it to my wife, and it's so fascinating that a guy who's like, apologetic, he's into apologetics. And he's preaching Jesus and the God, from what I understand. I don't know really much about this guy, so if I'm stepping on landmines here, forgive me. Don't cancel me.
I think you're pretty safe so far.
Okay, I don't know who the guy is, but I heard him talking pretty plainly about Jesus on a really popular podcast, and it was like a couple hours long, and there were like millions of views on it. I was just like, where are we at as a culture? And I'm asking this genuinely, like,
right,
where are we at as a culture where young people are listening to these popular comedy podcasts where a guy is talking about Jesus for hours, and it's like people are interested in that.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, and I think, he does a really great job of, because I heard him on Rogan, and I heard him, I first covered his debate with this guy named Billy Carson, who's just, he's out there.
Okay.
But Wes crushed this guy in this debate. They were arguing over, this scripture came from this papyrus, he knows all the things, right? Like this guy, Billy Carson, would start quoting something, and Wes, he's in his office, and he's like, oh yeah, I have that book that you're quoting right here. And it's like this book from 1,000 years ago. And he knows exactly what page the thing's on. The guy he's so smart. But I think what's super engaging with him is that he's able to relate some of these apologetic and historic things from antiquity, right, with what we're going through now. And for the most part, I feel like, I took a New Testament class for a master's in theology, and it was just so boring and dull. The information itself was cool as I read, but no one could make it interesting. Right. And Wes has a way of doing that. So that's a long way of saying, I think that's why he's drawing so much attention right now.
And it's interesting too, the cultural moment where young people seem to be interested in that. I think it was at church recently, my pastor was saying that we're actually seeing an increase, for the first time in a long time. I don't know the stats, so I won't try to quote them. But for the first time in a long time, we're seeing an increase in church attendance. And it's being led by Gen Zers.
That's right.
And even more fascinating about that is actually the young men.
Yep.
So it's Gen Zers, and it's the young men within the Gen Z.
Yep. Gen Z men are leading the charge. And I think, we really saw that even in the election. The turnout for Gen Z male voters was very high. And, I was actually just on an interview this morning talking about this. It's the next generation looking for truth, and they're getting fed all of this nonsense from the world. And then you've got people like us, and even the president saying like Christ is the way, and they're interested in that. And also I think one of the big parallels too is a lot of the people who are pointing to Christ are also saying like embrace your masculinity.
Yeah.
And the other side of the coin is saying like it's toxic, the future's feminine, all this stuff. So to me, when boys are looking to be men, they're going to gravitate towards the guys that are like, hey, come be men with us.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of the president, I don't really like, I'm not smart enough to like dive into the politics stuff. And also I'm not engaged. Like I haven't even looked at any news stuff in 6 months.
Yeah.
But I did see a really iconic picture of you praying for the president. That was
yeah.
epic, bro. Like,
Thanks, man.
did you print that out and like put that on your wall? It's such an epic photo.
Yeah, I have it framed over here. It was kind of a cool moment. I had no idea that was going to happen. I knew that I would be in the room, but I didn't think that I would end up being in the front. And it was just, getting to lay hands on the president. It was pretty cool. And, that would be cool for whoever the president is. I'd be happy to pray for any president we have because they're leading this nation. That'd be a great honor.
Yeah.
But so far, this is the only president I've been able to pray for. So I'm grateful for that.
And it was such an iconic picture. It was so cool, man.
Yeah, it was wild. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a God thing.
Yeah. So right now, I think I saw like you're doing a big push for fatherlessness, for engaged fathers. Tell us about that project.
Yeah, so we've titled it, Make Dads Great Again, play on the whole MAGA movement. But honestly,
do you like challenges? Do you like kind of getting in? I mean, even your college tour.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's where the best conversations happen. You know, when either me or that person is up against a wall, like that's where you find out, okay, can I defend what I actually believe? And 1 Peter 3:15 tells us to be ready to give a defense for the hope inside of us. And that doesn't mean that you have to be good at apologetics, because I'm certainly not. But I think I've found that like just even through reason and common sense, I'm able to apply biblical truth to like just about anything these kids bring up. But when it came to the Make Dads Great Again, I was just thinking like, dude, MAGA, whether you like it or not, it is one of the best marketing moves like in this century. I mean, it took over the country and it's global. And so we're just like, let's just play on that. Let's do we're coming out with hats. They're red with white letters on it. It's got an American flag on one side. It's got the PK logo on the other. And it says, Make Dads Great Again. And there's going to be people who scoff, and I'll just be like, hey, read it again. And no one can disagree with the message, right? And so I just think that's part of the marketing strategy. But really the goal of the content is exactly in the name. It's, look, I'm doing a good job, and a lot of people are doing a good job at pointing out the effects of no father in the home, and how the country is being eroded from within because of the lack of men and lack of dads. Okay, cool. We're doing that piece, but let's also over here show how awesome it is to be a dad. And so we're making these videos that words can't, they touch a place in your heart that words can't get to. Yeah. And if you watch the video, they're only 90-second commercials, but they just tear you up inside. So I'm pumped about it.
I do want to talk about that in a second. Are you are you familiar with like the Enneagram? Some people think it's the devil's, playground.
I'm familiar with it. I'm not a participant myself.
Yeah. I'm certainly no expert, but I think that they would call you the challenger.
I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
You enjoy like the challenge, like that kind of, it gets you excited.
I do. Cause I grow too. Like I learn a lot from these kids. Even through some of them, the good things they say, and some of them, the wild things they say. Yeah. You learn when you're buttoned up against someone, you're being sharpened. And I enjoy that. I think our culture is so soft, and people are afraid to talk. And so you find out, man, you give these kids space to come have an open disagreement. People want to hear that discussion first of all, but then you're actually growing. And like, dude, if you go back in time, this is what the philosophers did back in the day. Like they would have this public discourse out in the open. You know, the only difference now is we have microphones and we're recording it.
Yeah.
So
So is the campaign like mainly you said commercials? Is that what it's
Yeah.
going to be?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're commercials. I mean, we're trying to fundraise to see if we can get like a national TV ad, which would be cool. But yeah, we're shooting them around that 90-second mark so that we can post them as a reel. And it's been working so far. I mean, they've been getting really good traction, thankfully.
And what's the goal? Just to get the overall message out that we need, like, that in order for the country to be, in order for the world to be strong, we need men to step up and be engaged fathers.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, I would say that this is one of the first campaigns that we've done where there's not like a direct call to action, you know? And that can feel weird, especially if you're like a manager or a CEO or, you know, a ministry leader. You're like, we've got to point people somewhere. And for the first time, I just felt like, no, we don't. We just need to show people how awesome it is to be a dad. And if that can have a national influence, that would be great. And I mean, we're already seeing, you know, there's been thousands of comments across the two videos on multiple platforms. And there's guys that are saying, I long to meet a woman that I could marry and have children so that I can feel what I'm feeling right now. And it's like, that's it right there. That's it. It's touching the hearts of people who are single, but it's drawing out that thing that God put inside of us to be fruitful and multiply. And I think in a world that's like so much tech, you know, everywhere and just so fast paced, that when you see something like that, it almost like brings you back for a moment. It gets you out of your sphere of like being in the rat race and you go, man, I really want a family, you know? That is just, that's worth its weight in gold. So yeah, there's no follow up. There's no call to action right now. It's just, hey, I hope this video hits you right in the feels.
It's kind of crazy, dude, that it has kind of become radical for a young guy to say, actually, my goal and my chief aim in life is to get married, to be faithful to one woman, and to be a faithful husband and father.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't hear that a lot.
I don't know, like, I just attended 2 hours ago my son's 8th grade graduation.
Oh, wow.
It'd be interesting to hear like any of those boys, like, what do you want to do with your life? You know, like, would one of those boys, I mean, they're 8th graders, so we'll have to give them a little bit slack. I don't know if I would have said that in 8th grade either, but
Sure.
you know, for young men, like, when's the last time you've heard a young man? I mean, for women, you hear that more. It's like, no, I just want to be like, I want to be a great mom and have a family. But for a dude to just be like, you know, my chief aim is not to like make a bunch of money and buy cool cars and travel the world and sleep with women. My chief aim is to like be a really great dad and faithful husband and follower
Right.
of Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. Like what you said, that one comment, I would be like, dude, that we are making a difference. That's
Yeah.
the call to action. We are making a difference.
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny too, because the way, you know, at least in today's social media world, if you just post a commercial, like it's going to flop for the most part, unless
Yeah.
you've got a massive following, like millions already. So for me, I know I've got to post it like reaction style. And so that's what I did. You know, I posted myself watching it for the first time, the final cut. I recorded myself and I show the video at the bottom and I say like, you know, try not to cry challenge. And so it just gets people to watch. And it's funny because you'll have these guys on there that are like, I got 5 seconds in. I got 2 seconds in. You know, the moment I heard the little boy say dad, it just hits something. And that's what we need, man. I also love that some of the comments are like, I don't know how I got on this side of Instagram, but I'm crying. And what they mean is like, you know, the good side or the Christian side or the whatever. Because they're seeing videos that aren't normally in their feed. And so that's what I love to see too, because we don't just want to be an echo chamber. Like we want to reach people that normally would not follow my content at all, but they see these dad videos and they're like, hey, hate or love this guy, this video did something in my heart. And I think that's where it starts.
There is something about, dude, that I mean, I have father wounds. Like, you know, I didn't grow up with an engaged dad around. And so I see fatherhood stuff, dude, and I can watch a million movies, not cry, but the second a dad shows up, especially with a son, I'm just a ball. I'm a wreck, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I think
Yep.
a lot of guys, I would imagine a lot of guys who are watching that, if they've got any kind of fatherhood stuff that they're carrying around, it's like, dude, something in me, if I didn't have it right, I want to make it right, you know? And that was my motivation to want to be a great dad. You know, I'm trying my best to be the most engaged father I can be, but so much of my motivation has been because I want to give my kids what I didn't have.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's normal. And, you know, there's definitely a healthy side to that because it gives you like a perspective. You're fathering with your kid in mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just like, okay, this is the kind of dad I want to be, but this is the kind of dad that my son or my daughter deserves.
Yeah.
And that's totally different. It's just like with the whole love languages thing. You know, you might think that you're a great partner, you know, a great husband, but if you're trying to love your wife by spending time with her and, you know, hey, I love spending time with you, but I want you to do the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel the most loved.
Mm-hmm.
It's like true selfless love is figuring out how do you receive love the best,
Yep.
you know? Oh, you like when I do things around the house for you. You like this and that. Well, we got to apply that to our kids, you know, because they're different. They're like, my kids are only almost 4 and 2, but they're already so different. And I can tell that they need different things. I can't just like paint with the broad stroke and just, you know, this is how dad is and you got to get over it. It's work. And, but it's awesome work.
Yeah, dude. I actually just had that this last week. I had a conversation with a guy who was on here recently. I can't remember who it was, Kyle Idleman. And we were talking about how sometimes as men, we go into high production mode. And sometimes I will do that with my wife. Like I'm going to love her. I've been telling my wife outright, I'm going to outlove you. I don't know if that's good language or not, but it seems to resonate with her. She really likes that. So I'm like, I'm going to outlove you today. Like I'm going to go hard. And I just go into high production. I'm just like, I'm cleaning the house. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm putting the kids to bed. I'm making dinner. And sometimes I admit like you brought up love language. Her biggest love language is just quality time. Like all of that she appreciates. It means a lot to her. But if I just sat on the back porch with her and had a cup of coffee for 20 minutes, it would outpace all the stuff that I did. And so I think you're right. It's just like, am I loving you actually the way that you receive love?
Right.
And I think I think you bring up a great point. We do that as dads, you know, like I'm providing for you. I'm working super hard. I'm putting in the late night hours. I'm grinding. And my kids are probably just like, can you, you know, my 4-year-old's like, can you just play charades with me? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that too. It's like, okay, you know, can you come do with me all the things that you talk about and help everyone else do? You know? So there's just got to be a healthy balance there where, and that can be hard, especially when you work for yourself, you know, or you run something, because you could always be getting into stuff. You could always find something to do. There's always another thing. And so, you know, at least for me, I try as hard as I can to only do work that I'm not going to pay attention to anything else from like noon to 3 o'clock. And that's when my kids are taking a nap. And, you know, I did a couple interviews this morning and I might edit a video on my phone or make a thumbnail or something like that, or send an email. But like, you know, between 7 a.m. and noon and 3 and 7 p.m., I'm able to be pulled away for family stuff because I want them to know that like my life is not going to be consumed by what I do.
Yeah.
And that can be hard because
Super hard.
I don't know. I was raised in that culture of like, if you're not in a desk from 9 to 5, like you're not actually working. And the older I get, I just feel like that's really dumb. Like I think I can do more in 3 good hours, you know, intentionally than if you made me go sit in a building for 8 hours.
Totally. I've always thought that was stupid. I mean, that's kind of off topic, but just that whole concept is so. I'm just, whenever I've hired anyone to do anything, like I don't care about your time. I'm not going to pay you hourly. Like, just if you can get this done in 30 minutes, I'll pay you the same as if it was an 8-hour day. I don't care. Just like it's such a weird concept.
I know.
To make
well, and I think the all the lockdowns and everything that pushed everyone out of the workplace, it showed a lot of people that hey, I can do a lot lot better from home and I can be more efficient. But just because we're home doesn't mean we're present. So I think that's how I would tie it in, is like, I'm in my house right now and my kids could be running around all day, but proximity doesn't mean intentionality.
Totally.
And so I've got to make sure that as a dad, just because I'm around my wife a lot or my kids doesn't mean that they feel my presence.
Yep.
Right. So I can't fool myself and be like, I'm working at home. I'm home all the time. It's like, if you're not paying attention, you're not even there. And it's the same thing, bro. If you're hanging out with your kids or your wife and you're doing this, it's like, you might as well be in a building somewhere.
It's worse. I think it's worse.
Yeah, it is.
That you're physically there and you're just completely absent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's something I've been working on personally, is like being able to put it down and just engage. And I don't always need to be tinkering and,
Dude,
there's
the tinkering game is I'm a tinkerer. I got 50 more ideas and I'll just start tinkering around, And I think that probably annoys my wife the most. It's just like, do you really need to do what you're doing right now? Like, could you just be with me, be fully present with me?
I've gotten that question before. It's just like, you know what? I don't want you to have to ask me that again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to figure it out now.
Yeah. I want to go back to what I was saying earlier about my motivation about being a good dad, because my dad wasn't around. I will say, the caveat I will add to that is not enough. I've learned in my own life, like, just wanting to be a great dad because I didn't have a dad around was not enough to be the kind of dad that my kids need, or the kind of man I wanted to be. Like, I found that out in the last 6 months of my life. Like, I still had to address the pain, still had to address the wounds of my dad not being around, still had to address how that impacted me, the ways that I soothed that pain, the things that I've gone to like just try to find comfort, like all of that. Even though I was highly motivated, I still had to deal with the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can add to that if you have anything, but I just wanted to give my own little caveat to that. Like, I still had to address stuff, which was hard.
Well, and I think that's humility. Pride is like just trying to tuck it away, and I can just keep grinding. I can keep going. I can keep moving forward. And really, you're actually dying inside. Like, it takes humility to, stare your stuff in the face, and your kids and your family in the face, and say like, hey, I need help in this area.
Yeah.
And but that's what it's all about. Like, this life is not about like building the sickest, baddest, biggest ministry in the world. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the end of my life and let's just say Promise Keepers is like $1 billion organization and we're doing all this stuff, and my family feels like I was never there. Like, I failed.
Yep.
If that's it. I would rather just lead a small ministry and be a very present husband and father for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to balance both of those, because like, sometimes you got to think like a ministry leader or CEO, but it needs a balance with like, it's not all about the ministry. And I have seen people fall hard. I have seen people cover up sin. I've seen people excuse sin to try to keep the ministry going. And I will not be one of those guys.
Yeah. Well, praise God for that, man. And God won't let you eventually. Like, he'll, we've seen many leaders come and go because God says the kingdom will move on without you. Like, I don't need you. This is not, and that is the beauty of the gospel. Is like, I always refer back to Moses as such a beautiful part in the scriptures where the baton is being passed from Moses to Joshua. Moses just had a massive like run, like ministry wise,
right?
Just did a lot of crazy things. And then the transition is, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you will. It's just like a one sentence. Like, that dude's gone. We're moving on, and I'm just like, that is pretty much how God is like viewing the kingdom. Like, he just keeps moving, dude. And Moses is dead. Jared's gonna be dead. Shane's gonna be like, and I'll keep going. Like, this is not about me or you or anyone.
People die every day. The world keeps turning.
Keeps moving, bro. And God just doesn't need you for it. Yeah, and yet he's still gracious enough, like a good father, to invite us into all the ministry work, which is really nice. And yeah, man. I had a thought on where I wanted to share with the wounds that you said something in there, and then I got distracted by all that. But yeah, man. So what is the next stage for this fatherlessness thing? Like, are you guys, I know you said there's no call to action, but are you thinking kind of bigger picture on how you want to start equipping men to think through their role as a father?
We have curriculum that we're putting out. We just launched an app, and so we'll have like different playlists on there and some downloadable, content or curriculum for groups or for personal study. But really, at least right now, it's purely just, hey, every month and a half or so, we're just going to put out another one, and we're just going to flood social media with like great dad content. And I think on the I'm not going to go there. So, I don't want to spice it up for no reason. So
That's the that was you checking your challenger side of you.
Yeah,
I saw it in real time. It's
well,
like,
I quickly played out the whole conversation, and I'm like, it's not really going to benefit what I'm trying to say. So whatever.
That's good. What you just did there, if we could tie it into like marriage like that, if we could just hold our tongues for just a split second, say, should I say this?
Yeah.
Is this going to be beneficial for my relationship with my
Do you
wife?
watch that comedian? What's his name? Nate
Bargatze? Yeah, Bargatze. Yeah, he's so funny.
When he was talking about, he was like, the next time I get in an argument with my wife, I'm going to tell her like, well, I do my own laundry.
Right.
And you don't know how lucky you have it, all these
totally.
years. And, that whole joke about how when he finally pulls it out,
Yeah.
he's like, I found the right moment to pull out. And I said, well, I do my own laundry. And he said, and that launched a secondary argument that I didn't see coming.
And
it's like,
self-deprecating humor.
yeah,
is
you
hilarious.
gotta just, we used to say police yourself. You gotta just, you know what? Censor yourself. Sometimes
Yeah.
I don't need to say everything that comes to my head. Like I'm not that smart and wise and awesome that everything I say is needed.
Dude, that's maturity, man. That's maturity. And embarrassingly, I feel like I'm just now getting there. I used to just say like whatever I was thinking in my head to my wife, just say it. Not even like mean stuff, but just like this does not help at all. This is
Right.
0% helpful.
Like no filter.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't like I wasn't trying to be mean or dumb or whatever, or smart alecky. It was just like, just say it. And now I'm like, just pause for a moment. I've done that even with my kids. Just like, is this going to help them?
Yeah.
Is this actually building them up? Or are you just reacting to them?
That's
I totally
good.
interrupted your thought. Pal.
No. That's good. And you know what? There are times that my wife's like, hey, can I just process with you and like not have to filter anything? And I'm like, do it. And so I automatically know, and obviously we're a safe space for each other to like say things, but there's specific times that we'll be like, hey, I'm just gonna like word vomit on you. And even saying it out loud will help me process. And I just want you to like listen.
Yes.
And we'll do that with each other. And it's so helpful. Because there are times when you can feel like, oh, I've got to bring this packaged up idea with a bow on it. And it doesn't always work that way. And I'm grateful that we can go to the Lord like that at any time and just process our real things. And I'm thankful that, at times I do that with my wife. But yeah, I think it is it's a check for me too, to be like, hey, I don't need to unload things on my kids. Like,
Yeah.
I need to filter it. I need to check it.
Yeah. And is this helpful for them? Is it building them up? Is it training them? I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to do that. I was going to ask you too, dude. So my wife sent me this text right before we jumped on this call. I think it was with that Wes Huff guy that we were just talking about at the beginning, where I'm just going to read you I haven't read this article, but she screenshot it and says, Joe Rogan is reportedly consistently attending church Christian apologist revivals. And 57-year-old Rogan, one of the most prominent podcasters in popular media, is attending church consistently, according to Christian apologist Wesley Huff. That's super interesting. That's
that is awesome.
I do. You're talking about praying for the president, and you would pray for any president. I do pray whenever I see somebody have like a massive spotlight on them. I just will pray for them. I'm like, God, if you could just capture their heart, like just radically transform their life, because the amount of kingdom work that they would do with those big platforms. I used to pray that way. As I'm going to embarrass myself. but when I was younger and saw how much popularity Justin Bieber had, I would pray for that kid like pretty relentless. Like whenever he would come to
Yeah.
mind or I'd see him, I'm like, Jesus save him, Jesus save him. And I don't know, I have no idea his story or what's going on, but it seems like God is doing something in his life. So
No, I agree. And, I heard that as well. I can't remember. Someone told me who actually, I think, attends that church. They're like, yeah, it's true. Joe Rogan has been here like every Sunday.
wow.
Enough people were coming on the show that I'm like, dude, it's just a matter of time. Everyone who comes on is telling about Jesus. Kid Rock is on there talking about Jesus.
Really?
And yeah, it's wild. He's given his life to Christ. And and again, all these guys say that, and we're like, good. I pray that you keep walking with the Lord, because it's not just a one-time decision. It's like it's an everyday decision to follow Christ. But enough people were talking to Joe Rogan that I'm like, the Lord's after this guy for sure. And then you would hear these little comments where someone was talking about evolution, like maybe a couple weeks ago, and Joe was like, nah, I'm sticking with Jesus on this one. Like, I don't believe evolution. Like, it all just appeared out of nowhere. Like, nah, I'm with Jesus on this one. But he'll make these little comments.
Really? I didn't know that.
And it's just like, okay, the Lord's doing something for sure.
Wow.
So when Wes came on, a lot of us had already been familiar with Wes because of the debate with Billy Carson, because Billy Carson is super, super well known. I think he preaches just something crazy. But the way that Wes demolished him in this debate caught Joe's attention. And so we're like, dude, you got to get Wes on. And Wes comes, and I think Joe is the guy who's like looking for answers. He's looking for sources. He's looking for credibility. And Wes was able to provide some of that for him. And, it might have played a huge role in him kind of beginning to truly seek it out for himself.
I hope he does, man. I pray that, I'm going to just say it out loud again. Spirit of God, would you capture his heart for your glory, and just capture tons of people's hearts for your glory. Whenever I see stuff like this, even the cultural moment of like these young people, the Gen Zers come into faith, the young men rising up, it's just like, dude, God's doing something, man.
Yeah.
I grew up in a tradition where they were always saying that, and you just like, there's a revival on Wednesday. And it's like, well, there's like pizza and we did the same thing,
Right,
it's like,
right.
So you start to kind of get jaded towards that kind of talk.
Oh, I am.
I'm totally jaded towards that, but I'm also just like, you see this stuff. It's like, all right, God, just do it. My pastor actually said recently too, maybe it's not just like this one centralized church. It's not like there's no one person or one place that we could point to and say, God's using them to do a revival. It's just like this quiet rumbling underground of all of God's people.
Yeah.
And just, you know what I mean? That's kind of a cool image to think about. You can't really point to where it's happening, but something's happening.
That's revival. I mean, and of course it can spring up from somewhere. You look at the Welsh revival, you look at all these other revivals throughout history. But the word revival, it can translate to mean to cause a group to care about something, or to care about it again. And so I think about revival in America, meaning America cares what God thinks. Mm-hmm. That's when we can say, oh, we're in a revival. When multitudes of people are cut to the heart because of sin.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I have been living a life that offends God.
Yeah.
That's revival. And I definitely have revival fatigue for sure, because I've been a part of a bunch of revivals, and whether speaking or playing drums back in the day. And I just did a video today talking about revival, and I just read Isaiah 1, which is like, I'm sick of your offerings, I'm sick of your songs, I'm sick of your sacrifices, I'm sick of your iniquity and your sacred meetings. Like, I will not hear you when you pray anymore. I will not look upon you when you hold out your hands until you turn away from all of your junk and like you humble yourself before me. And that's like the opening chapter of Isaiah. And to me, I'm like, dude, this is revival. This is the method right here. It is humility.
Yes.
It is a church that has made herself clean. And 1 John 3 tells us that when we keep our eyes on Christ, we purify ourselves. And when we think of that day of his coming, and I think too many people forget that, like, we're going to stand before God one day. You know, whether a sinner or whether as a born again Christian, you will still stand before God. And when we actually think about that moment, we live very differently.
Yeah.
Because if we don't think about eternity, then we live temporally. And when we live temporally, we make fleshly decisions.
Yep.
And we've seen it in the church. And frankly, it's why we're in the state that we're in. And, you know, you can raise $20 million and rent out a stadium and fill it up. That is not the indicator of revival.
Yep.
It's the fruit afterwards of repentance and a life lived unto God. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah. Me too, man. I noticed last time you were on, I just noticed it this time, like you take all of the stuff I'm rambling about and then you just tighten it up and say it better. So I appreciate you doing that. That was,
I learned that in the Army, bro. I was a second in command of a company of like 115 guys. And, you know, my company commander, he was kind of a goober. And I was taught, you know, I didn't really like him. I didn't have a lot of respect for him, you know, and honestly, a lot of the guys didn't as well. But my job as the executive officer is to make him look good. And I took that to heart. You know, it's not like I want to see this guy fail so I can take his job. That's wicked. I had a higher up officer pull me to the side and he's like, look, everyone can see what's really happening. And so he said, I don't care what kind of show gets put on by this guy. I want you to take care of that company and give all the credit to your company commander. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so, you know, it's a long way of saying we'd be in meetings sometimes and he would kind of say a bunch of different things. And I would just say, well, you know, if I can just add some context, and I would just tie everything in and then give him credit for it at the end. And everybody knew, you know, because they're smart. But I just, it's helped me stay humble too, because I am trying to constantly think, like, even when you and I are talking, how can I compliment everything that you've just said? And it also keeps me on track so I don't ramble, because you know, Trump calls it the weave. Where he talks about 50 different things in like a 5-minute speech. Yeah. I'm guilty of that. So I know that was a long way of saying it, but that's where it came from.
I appreciate you making this D-bag of a host look good.
Whatever. No way.
Dude, I just watched this movie. I never get to watch a movie, but I don't know what happened. My kids went to bed early, or I don't know what happened. I got to watch a movie the other day called Warfare. Have you ever seen that movie? It's so fascinating. It was
Is
like
it new?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It could be 10 years old. It could be 10 days old. I have no idea what's happening in the world. But it was, I guess it was a Marine group that like got completely, it's a true story, and they based it all based on the memories of all these guys. And then like a SEAL team had to come in and help. And anyways, really, I enjoy movies like that. It's pretty, but they did a great job at like making you feel like you are in the room with them the whole time.
Wow.
And there was no like hidden agendas, which it's really hard to find in movies nowadays. It's just like, that's why everybody loved Top Gun, you know, the new Top Gun, because it's like it's just patriotic, good movie, you know.
Yep.
Anyway, Warfare.
And just so nostalgic too. Like,
yeah,
Top Gun, the new Top Gun took me back like instantly.
Dude, we had the Blue Angels come right here where I live. They'll pass through. I know they go all over the country, but they'll come right to this air base over here. And we were able to get a boat like right at the air base. So I had my family with me on this pontoon boat, and we were eating lunch, and the Blue Angels, dude, just like right sick. Over the top of our. It was awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid living on an Air Force base, and we used to go to the air show. You could sit like 100 yards from the flight line, you know, and they're just flying right by. They're taking off right there. It's
so cool.
Yeah, I miss that.
Dude, I've taken our conversation in a million different directions, and I appreciate you letting us go in all these directions, man.
Absolutely.
I'm a big
Hopefully we took the listeners with us.
Yeah. There might be one guy at the end of this just hanging on by a thread. Dude, I always just, you know what I appreciate about you, man, is your strong call to leadership, and it's just bathed in humility. Like I really,
thanks,
I sense that the Spirit of God is with you and on you, and His presence is with you, and that He's called you into this moment to lead well and to lead a big moment well, and yet He's keeping you close to Him while doing it, and it's just really refreshing. And so that's why I like hanging out with you and picking your brain on all kinds of different things, because you did that really well. So thanks.
I appreciate that, man. I just try to remember, like, you know, I still feel like the same guy that in 2016 when I got born again radically, like I was preaching on the street, you know, and fighting a bad guy over a gun that night as a cop and preaching the next day. And so the more I remember that where I started, you know, whether I'm here or at a conference or in the White House, like it's not a false humility. It's like a real humility of, dude, what am I doing here? Like, this is all the Lord. Like, who am I to, you know, stand with the president or whatever. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's something I intentionally try to walk in every day, because I've seen pride just kill
Yeah.
so many great ministries, take down so many men that I thought were great. And I really don't want to be one of those guys.
Yeah. Me either, man. Yeah. Thank you, bro. I always
Yeah.
enjoy hanging out with you. Super fun.
Appreciate you too, man.
Yeah.